So we're going into week 2 of the build, and obviously, they got a lot done. I'll bring you guys in the house while I talk. But for many of you who know or don't know, the reason that I'm doing this build is because I had mold poisoning last year, and we ended up losing all of our belongings, selling our house. So the whole reason I'm doing this is to have a mold-free home. And while I think they did the best job they could because they're not in my position, they did put some wood in the house that I feel is questionable. I'll show you guys right here. So you see like that black stuff. It could be dirt. Totally could be dirt. You see right there, could be dirt. But it also may not be dirt. And in the event that it's not dirt, that's one of the biggest issues with new builds and with any build. Maybe one could argue it's why we have mold in our homes, is because they're literally putting lumber into the house that might have mold in it, in comparison to all this wood, which is obviously really clean. So I'm in the process of trying to get them to replace those pieces, which they're fighting back on a little bit, mainly because I think that it's a pain in the ass to replace those pieces. But I think that for someone who's trying to build a mold-free home, it's pretty imperative. I just want to be honest that while this is like super exciting, it's also totally nerve-wracking. And I have to live in this liminal space of reality where it's something I've spoken about with my therapist, that like there always has to be an out for me. After how sick I got last year, if this house doesn't work out and I'm still sick, or I'm getting sick, or I'm still dealing with things like mentally and psychologically, I always have to have an out that I'd probably move to Arizona, you know? That like there is always an option, because after something happened like it did last year, life can really feel like it's closing in on you really quickly. So that's week 2. The house looks pretty good. Another thing about mast cell and the health issue that I developed is that I'm hypersensitive to like toxins and off-gassing, and new houses do that a lot. So I'm gonna show you guys a little bit of what we have going on and what we're setting up. This is an air scrubber. It's gonna be doing negative pressure out one of the windows, and we have fans, and there's a dehumidifier upstairs. There's another fan blowing here. So just trying to keep the actual structure pretty dry and cool is imperative during the building process. Another element that builders often miss is, all right, the building is closed, but now it's gonna sit for months in inclement weather without siding, without cooling and dehumidification. We live in like basically the tropics over here in the East Coast. Winter, summer, spring, fall is probably the driest, but it's humid out here. So unless you have like dehumidifiers and central air units running, your house is super humid. And again, this is not stuff that you would ever think about until you've gotten mold poisoning. I grew up in a New York City apartment where I was probably the beginning of my mold exposure occurred. And every year in the summer, the walls would literally sweat. Literally, they would be wet and sweating. And we had old steam heaters that would boil the paint on the side of the walls, and paint would chip from like steam heat. And that's what I grew up in, with leaks in the ceilings every year for my entire life. Totally unaware of mold or any of these things. I'm also considering starting a building company after this process. I don't know if these guys would ever want to work with me again, but they're pretty good fucking builders. So if they did want to work with me, where I ran like the green part of the building company, you guys, we are building the wrong way out here. With all the knowledge I have, I can really ensure that people will be built much safer homes. And again, nothing is perfect, but there is a way to go about this that's way more protective and safe, mold conscious, and health conscious. So these are probably going to be broken up into a bunch of videos, but yep, I will be posting something next week when we have everything in effect. The dehumidifiers, the air blowers, and all the things. Thanks, guys. Bye.